So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say good street photography doesn't actually have to be candid. And I'm gonna prove that to you. Street photography, if you listen to all the online gatekeepers and the people who are typing away on their keyboards, will tell you it has to be perfectly candid, you can't impact the scene at all. But I just don't think that's true. If you think about all of the great photographs from history, no one was truly candid. If it was really candid, you'd be invisible. It's really hard to make a truly candid photograph because people notice a guy with a camera on the street. So I like to think about candidness as more of a continuum. The Winogrand-Klein continuum, if you would indulge me. So how this works is that on the one hand, you have Gary Winogrand, whose entire goal was to be invisible. He wanted to be the most transparent photographer possible. You can look up old clips of him speaking at a university, and he's really fixated on this idea of disappearing and just having the camera there and people not noticing him. On the flip side, you have William Klein, who actively involved himself with his participants, literally prompting them to do stuff. And both of those guys are considered legends of street photography, that they are, part of the canon, and yet they have such radically different approaches. And I think they're not the only options. There's actually a whole spread of approaches that exists in between them, where you're not exactly perfectly transparent and you're not exactly prompting your scene. So there are 5 degrees of candidness. You have the full Winogrand, where you try and be as transparent as possible. You have people see you but don't really care. You have the right down the middle, where you've asked for access, so you have some level of relationship with your subject. Then you have the I actually photograph and make my presence known and trying to elicit a response. And then you have the Klein, where you're almost prompting your subjects. So you have a full spectrum of candidness, because even at the Klein level, you don't know how the subject is going to respond to you, which then makes it a somewhat candid photograph. Let's dig into the 5 degrees of candidness on the Winogrand-Klein continuum. So all the way on the Winogrand side of things, you have what would be considered like the upper bound, which would be true invisibility. That's pretty much impossible. So we're gonna skip that one and go to being as minimally visible as possible. So that is the first option. And that's, your photographer who has the camera, tries to be really discreet, think Ricoh GR users, or folks like Winogrand who act like they're shooting something else and, try and blend in. And this really only works in large crowds or major cities or places where people don't have high expectations of personal space. So if you're shooting in like the country or a suburb, or if you're shooting in a less crowded city, or culturally you're more like Germany where you're very concerned about privacy laws, then this is going to be a whole lot harder of an approach. And it's still not perfectly candid, because people do see a guy with a camera. As cool and as discreet as you think you are, people see you. It's just how it works. You're out on the street, people are walking around. Obviously, if people are busy, they won't notice, which is great, but it's not totally possible to be fully invisible. And it doesn't mean you can't make great photos using this technique. There are plenty of great photographers like Winogrand or any of his contemporaries who really took this approach very seriously. Obviously, Winogrand being like probably the most exemplary of these photographers, but there are plenty even to this day who are using this approach. And I use this approach when I'm in New York City or Philadelphia or a very busy urban metro. And I think it's a wonderful way to photograph, because you get these really beautiful, unblemished moments, or as unblemished as possible. So then if we're on the Winogrand-Klein continuum, the next step is probably going to be the people see you but don't care. And that's a really common one. That's one that a lot of great photographs come from. And I think is more like in line with the style of Alex Webb. Alex Webb actually visited Philadelphia a few months ago, and a couple of my friends were lucky enough to see him do his thing. And it's very centered on, he finds a beautiful scene, he hangs out, he kind of camps for a little bit, and he kind of just blends into a point when you don't really think about him. You're like, there's that guy with the camera. I'm just gonna get on with my life. And people continue to interact and do what they do, and then he's there waiting to capture that perfect, unblemished moment. And that's another really good approach. He's not totally invisible. It's not entirely candid, because people know there's a guy with a camera there, but it's largely candid. And I think it makes for an excellent photograph. I mean, if you look at The Suffering of Light, it's an absolute masterpiece. Obviously, it was 30 years of his career and he spent a lot of time doing it, but still, if that was his technique, it worked pretty darn well. So this next one is pretty much my style. It's pretty much right down the middle. I'm a very social dude. And this is what I call negotiating access. So on the Winogrand-Klein continuum, this plops us right in the middle. Negotiating access is one that is a lot more familiar with people who do reportage or documentary, because you have to talk to people. And so how this works is you talk to someone and they give you access or permission in advance to shoot them, but then you continue to shoot them in a candid way, right? They let you into the event. They know that you're hanging out with them for the afternoon, and then they slowly forget about your presence and you can shoot more freely around them. And this is a great one because you get to be able to shoot very freely. You don't have to worry about the person's response to your photograph or the subject's response or the group's response to your photograph. And it's still very, very candid. Obviously, these people know they're being photographed. They gave you permission earlier in the day, but still, you know, no one's totally aware of the camera. No one's constantly aware of their presence in front of it. And you're able to get some really, really excellent work. I think some of the stuff you can think of is stuff by like Dorothea Lange or any of the people who went and did documentary work during the FSA. As we start to talk about more staged or more engaged photographs, I don't really want to use the word staged, but more photographs where you've engaged with your subject, we start to enter the Klein half of the Winogrand-Klein continuum. And the next one is where you photograph in a way that actually elicits a response from the subject. So this is something like you're shooting flash really aggressively and you actually want the response of the flash to be the photograph. You can think of somebody like Bruce Gilden. He's done this for a large part of his career, or a portion of his career, and these are great. It's an exciting photograph. You can't control how they're gonna respond to you. You can't control how your presence is gonna make the subject respond, and that creates a photograph. Is it candid? I don't know. Is it great? Yeah, that work is phenomenal. So it's one of those things where I'm not really hung up on it because the work's great and it still is honest. It's still something that, you know, is somewhat of a surprise. And finally, we reached the Klein end of the Winogrand-Klein continuum. And personally, I'm a huge Klein fanboy, so take this with a grain of salt, but I really like that photo where he told the kid to act tough and then he points the toy gun at him. And obviously that's not the most candid thing. He engaged with the subject, he told them to do something, and they did it. And that's pretty darn close to staging, right? That is, you told this person to do something and they did something. Did he know exactly what he was gonna do? Probably not. And even if you tell someone, hey, do that, are they gonna do it the way you imagined it? Did you really stage it? Yeah, to some degree, but not entirely. So obviously, no, it is not the most candid photograph. But it can still exist in street photography. The thing about street photography is we don't have the same journalistic requirements as journalists. We are artists, and as an artist, you have some creative liberties. At the end of the day, it's not about whether the photograph was perfectly candid or whether you had some type of interaction with the person. It's about, is it a good photograph? Does it make me feel something? Is it emotional? Does it represent the human experience? If it's just a picture, it doesn't really matter. It's about making a good picture. And that's a whole lot harder and a whole lot more important than the debate around candidness. Obviously, I know I'm being a little bit of a heretic, so please leave me your thoughts in the comments. Am I an idiot? Have I not really thought through what street photography is? Am I taking too much of a liberty with its definition? If you like this video, please like and subscribe. This really helps me make more of these, as well as helps the growth of this channel. We also have a couple of tutorials that I posted in recent weeks on how to shoot flash and how to master manual mode, as well as another video about how I would spend my money if I was about to buy a Leica. So until the next one, I'll see you in the streets.